Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Pacific Unitarian Church. My name is Darcy Carroll, and I'm your worship associate today. We also would like to welcome our online viewers at home. Yay, we're glad that you're here too. This church is an inclusive community. It's open and accepting of all creeds, races, sexual orientations, and gender identities. We also always like to remember that we are on Tongva land. The Tongva tribe is an indigenous tribe going back to the 1600s, and actually most of Los Angeles was Tongva land, 4,000 square miles. We are grateful. We come here to be our better selves. We have a lovely lunch happening after church on the patio. If this is your first time here, lunch is on us. For the children, we have the story for all ages is in the service, and then they can follow Jewel, here she comes right now, out for religious education. We also have daycare available for the younger ones. You know how sometimes we have like 87 announcements in the morning? Well, today, no, I only have two. One of them is to sign up for Camp Divinaville. If you'd like to go, you can visit the website, or you could see Janet or Andy Kistner, and I don't see them here right now, but, oh, thank you. We've got announcements up there and dates. And the Camp Divinaville Pines, which is a lot of fun for a lot of people out in the mountains, is from June 9th to June 11th. And the other announcement I want to mention is the auction, our great auction, which is on June 24th. Many people here know about it and have participated before, but the items are so much fun. It's such a great way to meet people. So enough of that. And time for the chalice lighting. And no, before we do that, let me give you a few words on Michael Eselun. Oh, I'm so happy that he's here today. Michael serves as the chaplain for the Sims-Mann UCLA Center for Integrative Oncology. He's a two-time TED Talk speaker. He speaks extensively to healthcare professionals, patient populations, and faith communities across the country. He's also worked as an activist and educator addressing anti-LGBTQ bias in the larger community for over 30 years. Michael was recently inducted into the UCLA Semel Institute of Eudaimonia. Did I get that right? Eudaimonia Society, in recognition of having lived a meaning-driven life. He has 4 volumes of CDs available for purchase, and they're going to be out there on a table. They are out there on a table. And so now we are going to have some chalice words, and I will light the chalice.
Good morning. In the words of Kate McGahan, it takes love to hold on when you want to let go. It takes love to let go when you want to hold on. Mm-hmm. We light the chalice today, ever mindful of that place between holding on and letting go, a place for which there is only one word that we have, is love. We light the flame of love within our hearts and within this community. As a call to worship, I'd like to offer these words from Janet Rebhan in a book called Finding Tranquility Base. I searched among her crayons for a color that represented autumn and pulled out an orange-toned crayon, never used. It read bittersweet, and I wondered why that particular name. Autumn was my favorite time of year. I was always ready for the change. I guess some people didn't see it that way. Some people wanted to cling to summer. I loved both seasons, but I thought no one would ever call spring bittersweet, even though it was just another change, another new cycle, an end to one season and the beginning of another in an endless, never-ending spiral. Please join us in standing as you are willing and able and sing our opening hymn, number 38, Morning Has Broken.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the wet grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, even saw play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
And here is Jewel for the story for the kids. You need the mic.
Okay, good morning. Hi, everyone. I'm Jewel. I am the Multicultural Religious Education Director. And let's see, what are we talking about today, Lucy? I'm going to leave you with the prop, but you got to hold it. Okay. So, you guys have heard me say this many times. Unitarian Universalism is a faith without a creed. So, Unitarian Universalists hold different beliefs about religious subjects such as God, creation, Jesus, the Bible, death, and prayer. We all know that, right? And we're free to decide for ourselves what is true. So UUs are united in their beliefs that all people are inherently worthy. She's all are inherently worthy and should be treated fairly, that we should work for a peaceful world, and that we should respect the earth and all living beings and our connectedness. And these beliefs are our principles that we talk a lot about. But something we don't talk that much about, that you guys all know well, even though it's not named in this form, is that there are 6 sources of Unitarian Universalism. So that's where our faith comes from, right? So Unitarian Universalists find inspiration from 6 sources. So that's where all of our stories and themes and our lessons that we work on, they all come from these foundations of our faith. So let's see if these look like familiar ideas and who knows our roots. So what is our number 1 source of our faith? You're supposed to guess. Who knows? Yeah, it's a quiz. Who knows? Alex, mystery and wonder. Yeah. So there is a sense of wonder we all share. Is that something we talk about in class? And a lot at church? Yeah. Okay. Who knows number 2? We draw from inspiring people. Did we glue too much? A little bit. Okay. Okay, inspiring people. So we learn from people whose lives are inspiring and who remind us to be courageous, fair, and loving. Is that something we do? Is that true? Okay. Number 3. Who knows number 3? Nobody knows these by heart. Anybody in the church can raise your hand and shout out the answer if you know. We draw from world religions. So wisdom from world religions. So we've been exploring this a lot for a whole year, right? Okay. Number 4. Starts with a J, because you can see it. Judeo-Christian traditions, right? So that means we draw on both Jewish and Christian teachings, especially the ideas that tell us to love others as we love ourselves. And that's something that we talked about. I just talked about this morning. We were talking about being culturally different than our theology. So we might have grown up in Christian traditions and follow that some things culturally, like what we do in December. We still like Christmas, but we don't necessarily believe or subscribe to all of the faith that we were brought up with. So that's something we talk about a lot, right? Like every week. Okay. Science and reason is number 5. I'm not even going to ask you guys to guess anymore. Oh, okay. So we definitely encourage reasoning and questions and going deeper in thought with the right to question and change our minds if we get new information. And that's another tool in our toolbox. Who knows which tools that is? Who can remember? Magnifying glass, examine. What else? Questioning, flexibility. What's a tool of flexibility? Duct tape. That's right. Okay. Number 6. What is it, Lily? Our sacred earth. Okay, so our spiritual teachings, we celebrate the sacred circle of life in harmony with nature. And that's something that a lot of churches call that paganism or witchcraft, and they banned those ideas and took them over. They colonized them. But we still like our sacred earth, and part of how we talk about Christianity and our cultural, what's happening in cultural events, is we study where the roots came and how it changed over time through culture. And that's an important part of. Some people were like, why are we doing all this Christian stuff? But it's like these guys did the ancient understanding of how Native people understood the planets and the sun and the calendar, and how that marched all through time till now we get plastic eggs. So culturally, we might still like to have fun celebrations and just play and do that, but they understand the full environment that we're in, and I think that's something really important that the freedom of being a UU gives us, to tell the truth about those things. Okay, so thank you, Lucy. So today the grown-ups are exploring ideas from our first source, and that is what? Mystery and wonder. Okay, so what does being in awe mean? Being in awe. Awe and wonder. Oh, yeah. Awe. When you have awe. Anybody know? Awe. Lisa, how do you explain awe?
To be in awe is to be so overwhelmed by it.
Yes, being overwhelmed. Okay. So University of Michigan psychologist Ethan Cross, shout out to Ethan, defines awe as the wonderful we feel when we encounter something so powerful that we can't easily explain. So awe is a feeling we get in the presence of something big and vast in our world. So can you guys think of something you find really awesome that's like so magical and that's hard to describe in words? Wake up, you guys. Okay, like looking up at stars, maybe the birth of a baby. That can be awesome. Okay. So like gratitude and curiosity, awe can leave us feeling inspired and energized. It's another tool in our toolkits. Finding experiences of awe on purpose is especially important and helpful to people when they feel down. So according to a Harvard review, which Lucy laughed at me because I actually read the review, people experience awe regularly. People who experience awe intentionally, they reported high levels of overall life satisfaction and well-being. And so do you guys think walks in nature have a positive effect on your mood? Yeah, is that something we can agree on? Okay, so that can affect your mood and well-being. But nature can be a powerful source of wonder and awe, and its rhythms remind us that we're part of the natural world. But what can we do to find awe and wonder if we can't go for a walk in nature, if we're not looking at the sky or marveling at a baby? Can't watch. Find it on TV was Alex's answer. Okay. Okay, if we can't go out in nature, we can create awe and wonder maybe by what, Lucy? You had a lot of ideas this morning when we talked about this. What are some ways that you find awe and wonder? Finding it in people, in awesome people, yeah. Alma found it in crafting and doing things with her hands. We talked about animals and art. Greg?
You look at images from the James Webb Space Telescope.
Telescope, there, good one, yeah. And John had a great one. He said to just have reflection, to just be in your thoughts and have reflection. Okay, so another way to tap into our sense of awe and wonder is to be still every now and then, like John was saying, and to do nothing, to just watch the world go by. Because stress and a lot of distractions and the fast pace of life can sometimes clutter our mind. Okay, so moving along quickly. Sorry, it's taking long. Awe and wonder isn't dependent on our location or the scenery. Any place can be beautiful at any moment of the day and can inspire wonder. In fact, if you just let it, wonder might surprise you in the most ordinary and everyday places. The trick is to not miss it, to pay attention. Yo, you're thinking, you're okay, I'll take it. So here's a challenge I'm going to give everyone this week. Work to find the awe right where you are at any moment. You can invite moments of awe simply by asking the question, what's beautiful here? What's beautiful here? Think about your ride to church this morning. Close your eyes. What's beautiful about your ride to church? What was beautiful? You saw flowers? Yeah. Yeah. And what's beautiful here right now in this moment at Pacific Unitarian Church? Fire. Yeah. Okay. Work on that this week. Thank you, guys. Let's go.
Let's sing out the
Now
kids.
let us sing to the power of the faith within. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Sing to the power of the faith within.
Now is the time in our service when we share joys and sorrows, or joys and concerns, because a joy is so much bigger when you share it with people, and a sorrow is lessened. So if you want to share either of those, please come right up here and light a candle and share it. And you can also silently light a candle. You don't have to share verbal if you don't want to.
Yesterday. Hello? Okay, we're ready. Yesterday, I was delighted to take my female members of my family to see
last candle for any joys or concerns that remain unspoken.
As we move into a time of silent contemplation and reflection, I invite us to get comfortable in our seats and perhaps close our eyes. Let's just take a few nice, deep breaths together. As we breathe, we quiet our minds. We let go of the concerns of the day, the week behind us, the week ahead of us, the year behind us, the year ahead of us. And we simply follow the empty breath. We come back to that image of the love that resides in that mysterious place between holding on and letting go, a place we might at times call bittersweet. We breathe into a place beneath our need to characterize it as one thing or the other, a place in which we can simply surrender into the constant state of change, the endless, never-ending spiral of life. As a reading, I'd like to offer this from Wendell Berry. No, no, there is no going back. Less and less you are that possibility you were. More and more, you have become those lives and deaths that have belonged to you. You have become a sort of grave containing much that was and is no more in time, beloved then, now, and always. And so you have become a sort of tree standing over the grave. Now more than ever, you can be generous toward each day that comes, young, to disappear forever, and yet remain unaging in the mind. Every day, you have less and less reason not to give yourself away. Please remain seated and join me in singing our centering hymn, number 391, Voice Still and Small.
Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing in dark
A few years ago, a dear friend and colleague at the Sims Man Center where I work, Lorelei Bonet, was writing a lecture to give to an upcoming oncology social work conference. What are you going to talk about, Lorelei? I asked. Ecotones, she said. I'd never heard that word before. What, is that some kind of a retro punk environmental cover band? Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for the Ecotones. No, she went on to explain it's those transitional zones in nature between two adjacent ecosystems that are not exactly one thing or the other, like where a meadow meets a forest or where a river meets the sea. I love that there was a word for these places in nature that fascinate me. She was using it as a metaphor for places that cancer patients often find themselves caught between competing realities. I love it as a metaphor for any of us as we move into life's deeper mysteries, crossing boundaries and thresholds into territory that is not exactly one thing or the other, despite all of our desire and need to see it as such. And yet I find it is in those liminal places that perhaps we come closest to something we might call truth, or maybe even brush up against the sacred. In the summer of 2005, I took a week-long seminar on Cape Cod with Thomas More, the well-known author and psychologist. Thomas has made his life's work a study of the nature of soul. He constructed the workshop in such a way that we only spent half days together because he wanted to spend the other half of the day out on the Cape, letting it work its magic on us. He didn't have to tell me twice. I fell in love with the place, particularly the marshes and wetlands, ecotones that are not exactly land or sea, changeable moment to moment with the shifting of the tide. That love affair continues to this day. Nearly every summer ever since, Scott and I spend a week in Provincetown at the very tip of Cape Cod, and one of my favorite things to do there is to float effortlessly on the incoming or outgoing tide over the marsh, swallowed up into that magical netherworld. A sunrise or a sunset can be a kind of ecotone too, this narrow window of time that it isn't exactly light nor dark, isn't day nor night. I love the word evening for its unintended implication. It's an evening out of day into night. Yet in that narrow window of time is when we get to experience all those magnificent colors and those splendid shadows. In February of 2019, I got to take a solo 2-week journey across southern India from east to west, starting in Chennai and ending in Cochin. The penultimate stop of my itinerary was a teeny village called Muthuvankudi, high in the mountains, the Western Ghats, they're called, of Kerala. It's an area that's known for tea and spice plantations not far from the town of Munnar. I spent 2 nights at the Ecotones Lodge, if you can imagine. 8 Spartan rooms situated in the most stunning landscape imaginable. One night I was the only guest in the lodge. When I arrived, I booked 2 guided walks with a local guide, Vishak. Vishak was 27. He was bright, curious, engaging. He knew everything about every plant, every crop, every animal, knew everything about every bird in the neighborhood. He had a wanderer's heart himself, and he dreamed of destinations far from Kerala, though not quite sure he had heard of Los Angeles. Our first walk would be that afternoon, a spice and culture walk, he called it. We walked down lanes through farms and villages, plantations, through jungles, talking every step of the way, just about everything. We even got caught in an afternoon rainstorm, and we took refuge on the porch of one of the houses in the village. When the woman of the house saw that I was on her porch, she brought me out a chair to sit and wait out the storm. It was an enchanted afternoon. The next morning would be our sunrise walk. Vishak told me he'd pick me up at 5:30. I set the alarm for 5 o'clock, got up, took a nice cold shower because 10 more minutes of sleep seemed more precious than the slim chances of getting any hot water. I got dressed. I went outside early because my host, Sijo, had promised me a hot cup of tea before the walk. The super full moon was still high in the sky, illuminating the landscape in this eerie, silvery glow, casting moon shadows everywhere. The breathing stillness of the morning, it soothed my spirit, the coolness, the silence. Thank God Vishak brought a flashlight, because once we got under the canopy of trees, it was so dark you could not see your hand in front of your face. We walked in silence. Mostly, the only sound was the crunch of gravel under our feet. But soon the birds began to awake and call to one another, and then there was the call to prayer from a nearby mosque. We walked a few steps further, and there was chanting and gong sounds from a Hindu temple. Once we emerged out from under the canopy of trees back into the moonlight, we didn't need the flashlight any longer. Vishak took a hard left turn up a steep path. "This way, Michael," he called out. We scrambled up over rocks and boulders until we landed on this enormous slab of granite, this plinth high on this precipice with this stunning view of the valley around us. "We will wait here for the sun," he said. "Okay?" Oh, it was more than okay. Emily Dickinson once wrote, "I'll tell you how the sun rose, one ribbon at a time." It wasn't like that for me that morning. I was transfixed by the clouds enshrouding the mountaintops surrounding the valley, creating another kind of ecotone. You couldn't tell where the land ended and the sky began. But soon a pink glow began to emerge from behind one of the clouds. And that just then, this renegade appendage of cloud swirls up in the sky, its edges catching the hidden sunlight. It looked like a fire-breathing dragon for a moment, and just as quickly disappeared. And then the sun shone itself and announced the beginning of a brand new day. We sat there for maybe 45 minutes or so. Soon there was more chanting, men's voices in Latin this time from the Catholic Church down in the valley beneath us. And when they stopped singing, the women began to chant. And then the two voices blended in this exquisite harmony. It was a moment of sheer perfection. "Everyone needs this every once in a while," Vishak said. "Oh, yes, they do," I agreed. "Does this ever get old for you, Vishak? Is this just another day at work?" "No, I like this," he said. "It's never quite the same." I felt the oddest combo platter of feelings in that moment. Of course, I was profoundly gratitude for being able to be here and witness this, but I also felt this urgent need to imprint my memory with every sight, smell, sound, color, with this acute awareness that I will never pass this way again. And of course, that's true of every moment in which we live, isn't it? But somehow it seemed more true on that slab of granite. And as one who, I'm embarrassed to say, is probably greedy by nature, always wanting more, I found myself wondering how many years I have left, how many more opportunities. And it occurred to me, even with the best of luck, the years I have left are fewer than the years I've had some of the clothes in my closet. So that added to some of the urgency, but I also felt tearful and so longing. I wanted everybody I loved to be with me on this rock, witnessing this, especially my mom. But don't get me wrong, the essential feeling was one of gratitude. This moment is enough. This lifetime is enough. Vishak, do you know what that word Ecotones means? The name of the lodge where I'm staying? Yes, I think it means like eco-friendly, no? And I said, not exactly. It means a place in nature where two ecosystems meet that aren't exactly one or the other, like where a grassland meets a forest, a river meets a sea, or where your life, as different as it is from mine, we meet here on this rock. Yes, he said. I wasn't entirely sure he understood the depth of my meaning, but I knew I had experienced something sacred, something akin to Holy Communion. Living with cancer can be a kind of ecotone too, caught between these different realities. I've walked beside countless patients who don't know how to hold this experience. How do I make decisions going forward? Do I live as if I have all the time in the world, or do I live as if tomorrow might be my last day? What if it's neither? What if it's both? And if I have to live with that kind of urgency that today might be my last day, how do I live with that pressure to make every moment so profound and meaningful? I can't handle that. And wouldn't that rob me of everyday simple pleasures, the luxury of wasting time. The process of dying can be a kind of ecotone too, as anyone can attest who's walked beside a loved one through their dying process, a process that can take years, watching a loved one slip away by inches, leaving us to wonder how much of the person we know and loved is even still there. Such was the case with my mom over the last few years of her life, as dementia enshrouded her sense of clarity, even her sense of self, in a kind of fog, only parting every now and then to just give us a bare glimpse of the mom we knew and remembered, only to be swallowed up again, until a recurrence of lung cancer and COPD showed her to the final exit. She died on April 7th, 2019, not long after I got back from India, and I saw her for the last time on March 30th of that year. 1 year earlier, Mother's Day, 2018, Scott and I went to visit her. She lived on the Central Coast near Morro Bay. Just to get her out of the house, we drove into town, into San Luis Obispo, took her out to lunch, walked around a little bit, and then we just parked it on a bench there in the main plaza in front of the mission. It was exasperating, yes, to listen to the same closed-loop tape of complaint and frustration and disappointment and anger, listening to the same anecdotes I'd heard 10,000 times before. But still, it was a beautiful day, and it seemed far more pleasant to sit here and have this conversation, if you will, than to sit for endless hours in her mobile home in front of HGTV. But just then, an idea dropped into my head from somewhere else altogether. 16 years earlier, after my mom had survived lung cancer, I took a couple days off work to go see her with the express purpose of interviewing her on videotape exhaustively about her life, the story, but also the wisdom, what she'd picked up along the way. In those 2 days, we made 6 hours of tape. I had never listened to the interview since we made it, but somehow sitting on that bench, it occurred to me, Mommy, maybe you want to go back to your house and we'll watch that videotape of that interview we did 16 years ago. Of course, she had no recollection of the interview or that the tape existed, but she was game. Sure, honey, that sounds like fun. Let's do that. My intention was twofold. I wondered, what kind of gift might there be for my mom to give her her own story back to herself from a different vantage point? Might there even be a kind of magic in that? And selfishly, I was hoping to reconnect with that version of my mom I dimly remembered. And that's not accurate. Of course, I remember her. I just couldn't connect that version of my mom with this angry, bitter woman in front of me, her shadow spilling out everywhere. So that's what we did. That afternoon and evening, we got through 4 hours of the interview in 2 sittings. My mom was transfixed by the process, but also thoroughly confused. Now, where was this done and why did we do it? Asking only inches away from where the camera had been set up. Look, Mom, it's your same front door knob right there over your shoulder. But she was enthralled with the woman on the screen. This is so weird, honey. I mean, I remember these stories as she tells them, but it just doesn't feel like me. I know it's me, but it doesn't feel like me. She's so professional-like. I know. I was shocked, too. But this is fun, honey. Thanks for doing it. The hour grew late. She was tired, so we all went to bed. The next morning, she had no recollection at all that we watched the tape or that it even existed. A month later, we went to see her again, and we watched the last 2 hours of tape. For a host of reasons, this would be a far more intense experience. I'd long forgotten that her late beloved Glenn made a surprise appearance in the middle of the interview. "Oh, there's my Glennie," my mom howled. "Hi, honey." It was such a treat to see his smiling face again. I did remember that my mom had closed the interview with a rather tearful valedictory to each of her 3 kids, wanting us to remember, above all else, how much she loved us. To my shock and amazement, the next morning, my mom remembered everything. "Wasn't that something last night?" she said. "I just can't get over it. And you know what else? It made me feel like it's not so bad to get old, because I just don't care anymore. Everything that mattered so much, it just doesn't matter. So thank you, honey. I feel free." The tide had brought my mom back to me for a moment. We could float around in that ecotone for a moment, maybe even catch a glimpse of the eternal before she drifted off again. In February of 2019, before I went to India, my sister Terry threw my mom the most magnificent 90th birthday party. Friends, family from far and wide came. My mom said to my sister as she came into the party, "I'm looking forward to saying goodbye to everyone." Not long after the party, she declined sharply, and after a week in the hospital and a few days in rehab, she was sent home on hospice. Just to give my sister Terry a break, who had done all the heavy lifting with respect to my mom's care, a truly heroic job, I took a couple days off work to go relieve her. I knew that this would likely be the last time I would ever see my mom, though she did not. She did not understand that she was on hospice, nor that she would not be getting any better. And of course, I had my hopes and expectations of how I wanted that time to be. I wanted to be so fully present and conscious, aware of the magnitude of this threshold we were crossing. I'm sure it will surprise no one here to know that life doesn't always give us what we want. When my mom got home from the rehab, she was so thoroughly confused. On one hand, she knew it was her house, but she would ask, "Was my bedroom always here? Did I always have 2 windows on that wall? Was my TV always in the corner?" In the oddest way, I was having a parallel experience of disorientation. Is this really my mom? Is this the last time I'm ever going to see her? Forever? Yet I was present to her as a caregiver, as a chaplain of sorts, but not as her son exactly. I just couldn't connect to the emotional gravity of what was happening. I was so busy tending to the next task, getting the next meal ready, getting the next set of meds ready, answering the same question 3,000 times as patiently as I could. But I was present to her. In the spring of 2006, thanks to my husband Scott, I took my mom on a week-long trip to Spain. We had the most magnificent time. One afternoon, we were in Cordoba, and we're walking back to the bus stop to catch the bus back to our hotel. And there's a bit of chill in the air, and we were on the shady side of the street. So I said, "Mom, come on, why don't we cross the street, go on the sunny side?" And just like that, we both broke into spontaneous song. Grab your coat and get your hat. Leave your worry on the doorstep. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. My mom and I singing and dancing in the middle of the street in Cordoba, Spain. The last day I saw her, that Saturday, we're sitting at her breakfast table, and I'm reminiscing with her, trying to remind her of all the wonderful trips we had been on. And I was reminding her that afternoon in Cordoba. And we got to sing the song again. My mom knew every word. That song was a kind of ecotone, a bridge between our very disparate realities, which in the end weren't so disparate after all. But still, the moment I had dreaded since I was 4 years old, and the nuns at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church in Long Beach explained to us little tykes that we're all going to die. Even my mom. Well, that day was here. And I wasn't there for it. Not in the way I wanted to be. But we did have our song. That August After she died, Scott and I had our week in Provincetown. One afternoon, I was out huddled under my umbrella, tucked into the side of a sand dune in the pouring rain, watching the tide come in over the marsh, waiting for it to get deep enough to go floating out there. Like my mom, I always loved the rain. That afternoon, I was the only one out on the beach at Herring Cove. Earlier that morning, my brother Steve had sent my sister and me an email. He'd come upon a poem my mom had written. My mom had always written poetry ever since she was a lovesick teenager working as the cashier in the old Egyptian theater in downtown Long Beach. Alone in the box office and in life, it would seem. Judging by the tone of this poem, I'd say she wrote it before Glenn came into her life, so she might have been in her late 50s, early 60s, roughly my age. She called the poem Ageless, and she was reflecting on the soothing feeling she got when it rained, a feeling that was just as vivid now as it had been when she was a little girl, as a much younger woman, leading her to conclude that we are ageless, perhaps, at least in the way we might respond to life, or at least in the way life gets in and works us over. Over the last few years of my mom's life, it was harder and harder to ever connect to that ageless part of her. And now that she's gone, it's hard to know which version of my mom I'm remembering at any given time. Which was the ageless part? Which part am I grieving? There I was in the soaking rain, tucked into that sand dune, staring at my phone, reading and rereading that poem, trying to connect to it, and I just couldn't. But my friend Rosa reminds me, a womb is an ageless place too, a kind of ecotone, a place that is neither existence nor non-existence, and it's wet. What better place could there be to sit and contemplate your mom than in the earthly womb of that sand dune, soaking in the rain? That experience of the ecotone, that bridge, might just be close to what a patient of mine once described as a God moment. A moment in which not much really happens, in which the stuff and business of life falls away, but there is room and space for awareness that this moment is all that there is. And I'm available to love and awakening, and it's enough. A moment like floating effortlessly on the incoming tide in Provincetown over the marsh, or a moment like admiring a beautiful sunrise on a rock with Vishak in Kerala, India, or a moment like singing a song one last time with my mom. Ageless, perhaps, yes. After all, with gold dust at my feet on the sunny side of the street. So be it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Now I know why we had to have Kleenex up here on the podium today. I think Robin and Jim are going to do something now to honor the passing of Harry Belafonte, right? Oh, now is the time for our offertory too. Please, for the continuing robust life of this church, please give generously.
This is Jamaican rumba, dedicated to the great humanitarian Harry Belafonte, singer and songwriter.
That was exquisite. Thank you very much. Would you please join me now in the reading the affirmation of gratitude? Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for all those who share their gifts, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us also be grateful even for our needs, so that we may experience the generosity of others.
Of all the condolence messages I received after my mom's death, this one from my friend Buck means the most. And sadly, I lost Buck 2 years ago as well. But he wrote this: "I'm sorry to hear about your mother passing. She was wonderful and I loved her. I smile thinking of her. She loved you kids and made that clear. I remember one Sunday morning when she was with you when you spoke in Santa Monica. We sat next to each other talking and joking, always comfortable that way together. Then things got underway and we quieted down. And I kept an eye on her. She was smiling and looking around at the congregation, listening intently, hungry for what you were saying, connecting. She could tell you had a gift, could communicate your heart and touch other hearts. She leaned into me and whispered, 'That's my son up there.' And it was said with an equal mix of happiness, wonder, admiration, and great pride. And then at the end, without skipping a beat, she said, 'I just wish they sang some songs I know.' I loved your mom," he said. So as a closing hymn in honor of my mom, let's sing a song that she knew. Please rise as you're able and join me in singing On the Sunny Side of the Street.
Grab your coat and get your hand. Leave your worries on the doorstep. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. Can't you hear that pitter pat? And that happy tune is your step. Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street. I used to walk in the shade with those blues on parade, but I'm not afraid, 'cause it's a rover crossed over, and if I never have a cent, I'd be rich as Rockefeller. Gold dust at my feet on the sunny side of the street. I used to walk in the shade with those blues on parade, but I'm not afraid, 'cause it's a rover crossover, and if I never had a cent, I'd be rich as Rockefeller. Gold dust at my feet on the sunny side of the street. Yes, on the sunny side of the street.
Maybe we could sit down and invite us to just close our eyes and breathe a little bit. A few nice deep breaths, and we can feel all that energy that kind of passes between us, connects us in the family of things. And we consider again that image of the ecotone, the place between two worlds, a timeless place. May we keep our eyes and hearts open for those mystical places within us. May we float effortlessly in those places and discover the love that's there for us, ageless love. And may we give it away freely. So be it.
This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all of our differences and beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. We pause in silent witness to that unity. May the blessing of love be upon you. May love's peace abide with you. May love's present illuminate your hearts now and forevermore. So be it. Amen. Shalom. Salam. Namaste. And blessed be. And now our service truly begins.
I want to make a little announcement here for Abraham. He's having his senior recital on Saturday at Fullerton, and it's at 3:00. And I'll give the information to Gabby so that if you're interested, you can look online and get the full info. Okay. Here we go. Down the way where the nights are gay and the sun shines daily on the mountain top, I took a trip on a sailing ship, and when I reached Jamaica, I made a stop. But I'm sad to say I'm on my way. Won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I had to leave a little girl in Kingston town. Down at the market you can hear all the dancing girls sway to and fro. I must declare my heart is there, though I've been to Maine and Mexico. But I'm sad to say I'm on my way. Won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I got to leave a little girl in Kingston town. Sad to say I'm on my way. Won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I had to leave a little girl in Kingston town.
Join us for lunch.
Yes.